Hello students, today we will study about the secondary cells. Uh, Secondary cells, these are the cells which can be recharged by passing a direct current through them. Like first we'll study about the lead storage battery, which is used in our household power inverters. That is a lead storage battery, and it is also used in automobiles like car, buses, and trucks also. So this lead storage battery, uh, it is a galvanic cell in which anode is made of grid of lead. Anode, it is made of, these are the grids of lead. Okay, anode, and it is packed with finely divided spongy lead also. These are the grid of leads which are packed with the finely divided spongy lead is present in it. While if we talk about cathode, these cathodes, it is a grid of lead. It is also a grid of lead, but it is coated with red brown lead dioxide, that is PbO2. Okay, these both are the grid of lead, but it has a packing of spongy lead and it is coated with PbO2, brown, red brown colored PbO2. And electrolyte which is taken here, it is aqueous solution of sulfuric acid, which is 38% by mass. It is used here as an electrolyte. So the cell representation is like lead, lead sulfate, sulfuric acid is there, and lead oxide and lead. So we'll see how this lead storage battery, it is charged and discharged. First we'll see when electricity it goes, and this battery when it will start its working, how it happens. When the current is drawn from the battery, see, anode, lead is there. It reacts with sulfate ions from the aqueous solution. Sulfuric acid is there from the aqueous solution, and it will form lead sulfate. Solid lead sulfate will be formed there, and 2 electrons will be released. Then at cathode, lead oxide is there. This will also combine with sulfate plus H plus. See what we are seeing here. Sulfate are also used up. H plus are also used up. Plus 2 electrons, and again we'll get lead sulfate and 2 electrons. It means in both the cases we are getting lead sulfate, and we know that lead sulfate is a white colored PPT. Overall reaction will be lead and lead oxide. These both, they will combine with H plus and SO4 2 minus to form lead sulfate and water. In both the cases, see, lead sulfate and water it is formed. It means in the overall reaction, the sulfuric acid it will get used up, because the discharging of the cell it is taking place here, and the sulfuric acid it will be used up. Therefore when current is drawn from the cell, sulfuric acid it will get diluted. Yes, it is getting diluted, and its specific gravity it falls. Now see what will happen in both the cases. We are getting lead sulfate. It means both the electrodes, they will get coated with the white precipitate of lead sulfate, and when they will be coated with the lead sulfate, it means the further reaction it will stop. Yes, the cell reaction it will stop, and the cell or the battery it is said to be discharged. It means now the cell or that battery it has been discharged. Now we'll see how this is recharged. Now this discharged battery, how it is recharged. The discharged lead storage battery, it can be recharged when we will direct current, will pass the direct current through it, and that too in the opposite direction. Okay, direct current, this we have to keep in mind, that when the discharged battery, lead storage battery is recharged, that time we have to use direct current through it and in the opposite direction. It means the negative electrode of the storage cell it is connected to the negative of the direct current source. and positive to the positive. Okay, so this will reverse the direct current, and then what will happen here, see, just reverse reactions of this will happen here. Here what was happening, lead, it was combining with sulfate to form lead sulfate, and this was also combining to form lead sulfate. Now here, see what will happen, the reverse reactions will occur. Lead sulfate is there, plus 2 electron, direct current is there, DC current, will get lead and sulfate aqueous. Here too, lead sulfate in water, direct current is there, we'll get lead oxide, 4H plus and SO4 2 minus. Means, if you'll see the overall reaction, lead sulfate is there, water is there, lead is there, lead oxide is there, and we'll again get sulfuric acid. So in the overall reaction, we can easily see that lead sulfate, which was present on the electrodes, due to which the functioning of the battery had stopped, this will be used up when the charging will take place, and will obtain lead and lead oxide. Again they'll go to the their respective electrodes, they will be recovered, and this hydrogen ion and sulfate, they will combine to form sulfuric acid, which will also be recovered. So this was the charging of a discharge cell, and this was when the current is drawn from the battery. Two processes are here. Now the second one is the nickel cadmium storage cell, which is also called NiCad, and this in this cell the anode is made of cadmium, and cathode, it consists of a metal grid which contain nickel oxide, and the electrolyte which is used here, it is KOH. KOH is used here as an electrolyte. Now see the reactions which will occur here when the current, it is drawn from the cell. Now the current we are drawing from the cell, cadmium plus 2 OH, OH from the electrolyte, will get cadmium hydroxide and 2 electrons. In the same way, nickel oxide is there, water plus 2 electrons, this will gain, will obtain NiOH whole twice and 2 OH minus. Here too, see, if we'll see the overall reaction, cadmium and Ni2 were present before the reaction, and now we have obtained cadmium hydroxide and nickel hydroxide. Here too, direct current is provided for the recharging of the battery, and see, it is written here also, the discharge cell, it can be recharged by passing the direct current in the opposite direction. When we pass direct current in the opposite direction, this discharged battery will be charged again. Now fuel cells. See, these are the cells which convert the chemical energy of a fuel directly into the electrical energy. Chemical energy of a fuel directly into electrical energy. And here we'll first study about hydrogen oxygen fuel cells, which is also called Bacon cell, because it was discovered by the scientist whose name was Bacon, and it is the potential source of electrical energy in the Apollo space program. It was taken there during the Apollo space program of USA, and it is a very good source of electrical energy. See what is present here in this cell. These are the electrodes which are made of porous carbon, and here catalysts are present. Catalyst, expensive catalysts like platinum, silver, and palladium, these are present here over here, and this center part, it is filled with aqueous solution of KOH or NaOH. Hydrogen gases pass through this point, input point, and oxygen from here. These two gases, they combine with this when they pass through this porous carbon electrode, there they combine with catalyst, and water is formed. Obviously the water which is formed, it is in the form of steam, and that steam, it is condensed, and that condensed water, it was used by the scientists for drinking purpose also that time. So the reactions which will take here, hydrogen gas, it will combine with hydroxides, obviously from here, it will form water plus 2 electrons. We'll multiply this whole reaction with 2, because we have to equalize the number of electrons. oxygen, it will also react with the water, and 4 electrons it will gain to form hydroxide again. It will produce again. So the overall reaction will be hydrogen and oxygen, they will combine to form water, which is uh, obtained here, and that those vapors, they will be they will be condensed to form water, which was used for drinking purpose. Now the next topic which we will study here is corrosion. Corrosion, I think everyone is familiar about the term. It is the slow, yes, it is the slow but spontaneous, it means continuous deterioration of metals due to their interaction with certain environment. We know that moisture, oxygen, even carbon dioxide, many other gases, reactive gases also, all these things are responsible for the deterioration of the metals, and that is called corrosion. Factors which govern corrosion: the first one is the reactivity of the metal. If metal is very highly reactive, then obviously it will get corroded very fast. If any impurity is present in the metal, then to suppose the metal is not itself it can be corroded easily, but if some impurities are present in it, those impurities will corrode the metal. Presence of the reactive gases in the air: if some reactive gases are present over in the air, then those reactive gases, they will combine with, or they will provide some conditions to the metal to get corroded. And presence of electrolyte in water: if some electrolyte, suppose the water is pure but some electrolytes are there, suppose if rain happens and some acid is present in it, or some salts are there in the water, then those will cause the corrosion of the metal. This is the, if corrosion is taking place in iron, then it is called rusting. Rustings are, it is the reddish brown flakes which are present over iron when the iron article, it is kept for a very long time in open air, moisture, atmosphere, like that. Then iron, it combines with oxygen and water to form Fe2O3.xH2O, which is called rust. Now, how can we prevent from corrosion? How can we prevent our articles from corrosion? The first method is the barrier protection. Barrier means some barrier, it is provided between the article and the atmosphere. Okay, simple. We can coat the surface with paint. By painting, we can protect the metal from getting corroded, and by coating the metal surface with oil and grease, or if we'll cover the surface of the metals by some non-corroding metals by the process of electroplating. Like if we will cover the surface of the metals with nickel or chromium, nickel and chromium, they are non-corroding metals, so they will protect the metal which is present, which was the active metal. And if we'll cover the metal with some chemicals, like if we talk about iron phosphate, it can protect the articles from getting corroded. So these are the barrier protection methods. Now this is a sacrificial. Here we'll see that a more active metal, like suppose sewage pipes are there, and we use some very active metal like magnesium and all for the protection of such metals there. This method, it involves the protection of metal at the expense of some other more active metal, because the pipelines we have made, but we have to protect those pipelines also. So some active metal is present on its surface, or the surface of those pipelines, it is coated with some active metals, and those active metals, they are present over its surface, and they protect the articles from that. Now here also, see, this method, it involves the use of more reactive metal. Here also, more reactive metal, it is used as a sacrificial anode. It sacrifices itself to protect the inner metal, along with a lesser reactive metal to be protected. So this is the cathodic protection, and the last one is the protection by anti-rust solutions. The solutions which protect the articles from being rusted. A film of iron phosphate, it protects the metal from being rusted, and these solutions are used to prevent the rusting of automobile engine parts and car radiators. So iron phosphate, it is used as a anti-rust solution. So this was all about chapter 3, um, and we'll start with chapter 4, that is chemical kinetics. Thank you.